Boys, welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going over why I sold one of my two autofocus lenses for this guy right here. And we're gonna go over why I sold my Sigma 24-70 for this prime lens. Now, I love my autofocus lenses. We're gonna be doing some other tests in this video as well. So if you wanna skip towards, later in the video so you can watch more of it, I'm gonna be doing some context right now of why I sold a Sigma 24-70. It's really not a good reason, which is probably why you should listen, but I wanted to challenge myself. But watch through the video if you dread talking head stuff. I am trying to get also into cinema lenses. The budget cinema lens I'm thinking of getting is a used Zeiss Otis 28mm and a 55mm lens. But I put a pause on that and I got this prime lens, which you're watching this video on right now. And that lens is the Sigma 35mm F1.2. Now my previous setup was, and this is all E-mount, FX3 user. I'm recording this in 24 frames per second, the best quality you can get from it in the settings. Nothing's compressed or anything, no compression. Is I had this Tamron 17-28 f2.8, which I love this lens for wide shots. And I also, again, had the Sigma 24-70. Now, with a 24-70, I was practically covering the focal lengths of 17-70 in f2.8. So you're asking, David, why would you sell that lens for a 35mm prime lens, autofocus as well? Now I'm gonna put aside the fact that I am gonna be getting cinema lenses in the future. I just wanted to express that, and that's part of the reason because I wanted to get used to prime lenses, and I would end up getting prime cinema lenses. So that's kind of one reason. Sorry if you hear any woodworking in the backyard. I'm in my kitchen right now, so it's probably echoey as well. But this right now is filmed on my FX3 and the Sigma 35mm F1.2, filming in 1.2. So, why I sold the 24-70. Was it a stupid one and I should have just saved up and bought this lens? Yes. But the thing is, I hate having to buy gear out of my pocket for a high price. I sold the 24-70 because that was my highest valued lens. I sold that lens for, it was used for a while, only came with the end caps and the hood. So I sold that cash for $850, cash Venmo. This lens you can pretty much only get $530 for max with only the two end caps, nothing new. You could probably get $550 or $560 if you had the box as well, good condition. But that was my most valuable lens right now, and so I knew this lens was more expensive, and I wanted to just sell that one so I wouldn't have to put as much out of my own pocket to buy this lens. Stupid idea, I know, but it's really just how I've been doing it over the years. I don't hate owning, but I'd rather just sell something and not put as much of my own money out of pocket currently back into something else. Like me, I rarely buy anything new. I've never bought a lens new. The only camera I've ever bought new is the Lumix S5 and this FX3. So the reason me selling it was to get more money for this lens. I bought this lens on eBay from Japan. It came here in 3 days. Don't be dissing those Japan sellers. They actually have a really good system out there now where you can literally get your lenses and camera gear from Tokyo and China in like a week or less. So I bought this lens with the box, all the directions, the carrying case for the lens, all the caps for $830. This lens has probably been used only like 5 or 10 times and very lightly used, because I think the new price on Amazon, it's on sale for $1,200. And so with shipping and fees, I paid about $930. So I do use 50 millimeters to 70 millimeters fairly often. But everyone knows that 35 millimeters is like an amazing in-between lens for getting medium wide shots to, you can just move your camera closer up and get, you know, amazing close-up shots. So I wanted to challenge myself as a filmmaker and get rid of my most versatile lens for one of the most not versatile lenses. But I've never really used prime autofocus lenses before, so I wanted to challenge myself. And I know like I could have gone with the Sigma 1.4, which probably would have been $200 or $300 less than what I got this lens for. But I knew that if I was going to be trading my most versatile lens, I wanted to really get the best prime autofocus lens I could. I don't buy G Master lenses because for what I do, I don't think there is that much of a difference depending on the lens you get. But if I were to put this lens up against a 35mm G Master, they would pretty much look the same. This Sigma might look better, but I think the Sony version of the 35mm G Master will have slightly better autofocus, because I do know that with this lens, with some of these Sigma primes, is it kind of hunts for, it'll find it, kind of readjust and then micro adjust, and you're on the subject. Sony's is a little bit smoother. So I have my autofocus settings pretty good on the FX3 right now. So I kind of told you the reason why I sold the Sigma 24-70. I could put more money into buying this lens, and I wanted to challenge myself because I eventually do want to use, you know, 80% of my work with cinema lenses. And so some autofocus primes is definitely something that will help me because I can use manual focus on it as well. But I also do love using autofocus some of the times when I need to. Now, yes, any situation where I will be filming in 70mm, I will be hindered. But I do have two Helios 55mm lenses. So I am covered for that type of, I don't know if there's actually a crop on those lenses. I don't know if they're like full frame or how it kind of works with that. I'm assuming it stays at 55 more or less. So I have a 55mm Helios, and that will cover me for 50mm, even though it will look different than these autofocus prime lenses that I have. And my Tamron 17-28. How fast is that autofocus? Okay, not too bad. So I'm kind of getting myself ready for not having zoom lenses in the future. And I occasionally do a lot of low light stuff, which this camera does have 12,800 native base ISO and S-Log3. So 2.8 will do very well in very dark scenarios, but if I can get to f2, f1.8, I don't want to have to use f1.2, even though I'm using it right now. I probably will end up using f1.8 to f2, because I do know that I'm gonna try and do some chromatic aberration tests with different things, not scientific tests, but see if I can pixel peep and find some different things here and there. You usually get more chromatic aberration at the lowest f-stop of your lens, if it's like a f1.2 like this. So I don't plan on using f1.2. If I do use it, I'm gonna make sure that there's not many parts in my image where chromatic aberration is gonna show up super well. But I've seen a lot of tests have it showing up on tree branches and things like that. So those are some other tests that I'll be using to pixel peep. So I think I wrapped it up. I think you guys kind of get where I'm coming from. I do want to get, you know, a set of high quality prime autofocus lenses, but someday I will buy back my Sigma 24-70 because I know I will need a lens like that. So I can get it, you know, even cheaper used now. So I can probably find one for, you know, $700, $750, you know, used by itself. So I'll eventually still have an autofocus lens lineup, but you know, I want to get used to primes because cinema lenses are generally prime lenses. You know, in cinema zoom lenses, the good ones are usually T2.9, T2.8. So I think I'm really gonna do, for cinema lenses, if you want my input, I've done so much research on cinema lenses in the budget range of under $2,000 used. And I've thought about anamorphics. I love anamorphics. I've thought about the Suri, which I think is good if you know that you are only gonna be filming anamorphic. But the thing is, if you want that wide anamorphic look, like to fill that whole screen, like if on YouTube content, to fill that whole screen, you can get a red camera and film in 5K wide mode, and it still spreads across the whole image like an anamorphic lens does. So there's different things to combat that, and there's so many jobs where you're gonna need to convert, you know, your content to vertical, unfortunately. So to sell some of my lenses and get anamorphics didn't make sense. And I've done a bunch of research on the different lenses. I thought the DZO lenses had a little bit too much character for me, even though I love how they look. If I were to get a cinema zoom lens, I would go for the DZO Cata Ace or Cata Zoom. That's probably the best cinema zoom lens for budget right now. And I think the best next lens that you can buy brand new for a low price are the Nissi Athena lenses. Those are probably the cleanest, best looking cinema lenses for a brand new budget price of like $1,200. So I don't even know how they make that lens, you know, for that cheap. But there are some downsides to it, you know, here and there, but they look super clean, and I'd probably give them like an 8.5 out of 10, you know, for cinema lenses, cinema prime lenses. They're amazing. But Zeiss is so on top, and even their older lenses are so amazing that the Zeiss, how did I just forget this? The Zeiss Otis lenses, you can get used for $1,600 to about $2,200, depending on how long you wait, when you get them. And so that lens has a mixture of the amazing image and character that Zeiss lenses have, but it's also just a super clean image that looks amazing. So the Zeiss Otis lenses, I think, I love the Nissi brand new lenses for $1,200 or $1,300 or $1,600, but unlike what I would normally do and buy the slightly cheaper thing, is I'm gonna save closer to that $2,000 and adapt the Zeiss Otis lenses, which I think come in EF mount and Z mount for Nikon. Adapt those lenses to the FX3, and I genuinely believe that you're probably gonna get one of the best images out of those lenses. Zeiss has some older, like mini nano primes. I know they have some smaller ones that are expensive, but they had some other ones that were even cheaper. I think it's the Zeiss compact primes. Yeah, it's the CP2 Zeiss compact prime. That one you can get used in very good condition for $1,200, or a set of 3 of them for $3,000. So yeah, pretty much in that same budget realm. But I've just seen that they still have a cheaper look. I think the chromatic aberration, they had a little bit more, even though Zeiss does do a very good job on keeping it low. But the Zeiss Otis lenses, there's something about them. If you look up some reviews, they are amazing lenses, and I don't think enough people use them with modern cameras. So I might try to rent one for a video for you guys to watch, just so that I can see if I make the right decision, because there might have been some FX3 videos on them. I think there might be, but they look amazing. They just look so good. Brand new, I think they're about $4,000. So I did warn you that this would be a long talking head section. If you watched it, amazing. If not, now we're gonna get to some of the testing, which is gonna be outside, because I do wanna give these lenses a fair chance and give them some good daylight to film in. And so I'll be doing that tomorrow or later tonight, maybe in the evening, maybe around 4 or 5 p.m. A little better lighting, and do an autofocus test. I'm gonna be doing some chromatic aberration tests, pixel peeping, using like tree branches and that sort of thing. And we'll have a few other tests and just talk about the lens. You know, I'll look at some of the footage before we go over it. or I'll record myself while I pixel peep the footage and you'll see it right up there with me. And you can point out your own things about this lens in the comments below. So let's go get into that footage. All right, so it's actually literally starting to rain. The majority of these tests are gonna be shot in f1.2 because, let's be honest, if we're gonna try to go up to 2.8, we might as well have bought a 2.8 prime lens or kept the Sigma 24-70. So this is all gonna be 1.2. I might do some other stuff later with f2.0, but right now, good autofocus test. My autofocus speed, I'll put it up on the screen, but it's actually starting to rain. So here we go. All right, there's me. I'm gonna go in a frame, a little farther out. This is about 15 feet away. Yeah. All right, boom. Boom. This is on like eye face priority, so usually what most people will do. Okay. Oh, and my autofocus box is about So it actually, for items, I just gotta make sure it kind of goes in the middle. Okay, we're getting too wet. We gotta do this later. Alright guys, so we got a low light test over here. Kind of the same spot. I wish it was a little wider. It's pretty dark, just one house light right there. So just kind of running some of the focus. It looks like it might be a little slower. I'm still at 800 ISO though. So let me bump it up. Here's the rest of the yard. A little bit of the house. We got a pond right there. Pretty much it. Let's bump it up to 12,800. All right, I have not changed any exposure or anything. Looks like we're pretty much, that looks like it connected to the basketball hoop a lot better. Oh my gosh, okay. I hope you guys know, in real life, I literally cannot see it. Like, this is even better than, like, real life. Like, to me, the whole water, the top of it's just black. Obviously, there's some light here, so I can see a little bit. But you guys can actually see, like, the reflections. I can't even see the reflections. Here's the rest of the yard. Oh my gosh, yeah, so my eye pretty much cuts out along there. You see that little post right there? You know, if that was a straight line to the house, that's pretty much where my vision blocks off. But you guys can literally see the end. I cannot. Obviously, this is 1.2. So this is, if you need to film, let's get some little shots. If you need to film any sort of outdoor stuff at night, this is definitely your lens. The 800 ISO really didn't work too well, but this 12,800, like the sky, I have to really focus on the sky to see the designs of those clouds. But you can see those clouds. But I'm in my little sort of work area. We're back at 1.2, 800 ISO. This obviously, I didn't have enough time to use it as much as I like. So let me know down in the comments. I know this is all labeled a review, but you know, you're just seeing a little bit of test footage. So I hope that the little bit that you did get, some night footage, this and that, you kind of get to see that it's an amazing lens. 12,800 ISO is pretty crazy. But again, if we're getting really in close, I think the G Masters are probably going to be a better option, because used from Japan, you're going to be spending about $950. Used on eBay, you're probably going to be spending $1,000 or $1,100. I'm assuming. Maybe you can get it for a little bit cheaper. But I got the box, the carrying case, everything. This lens is practically new. So I'm enjoying it a lot. I love it. I'm not seeing too many problems. I think if your person isn't moving as much, because the thing is, I shoot a lot of YouTube content. I'm not as much as a commercial cinematographer. In that case, I would have just only be buying cinema lenses, but I rely on autofocus 90% of the time. So I'm seeing it track on my eye right now, and I'm assuming it's doing a pretty good job. And again, this is 1.2. If I'm out doing some shoots with a lot of cine lenses, you get more chromatic aberration at your lowest T-stop or, you know, f-stop. So I don't remember scientifically whether this one had a lot of chromatic aberration, but if it happened to, I'm assuming it probably does have a little bit. If you stop it up to probably f2 to 2.8, you're gonna lose most of it, but the point of this lens isn't to use 2.8 really, but it all depends on the shot. You know, if you're filming and, you know, movies aren't shot in 1.4 the whole time, that's just for a few good shots have the crazy bokeh background. I'm just testing 1.2 because that's the lowest, and they made this lens for 1.2 because Sigma already has a 35mm 1.4. So I'm like, let's test what 1.2 works, because we all know anything above, you know, T2.8 is gonna look like. It's gonna look like the Sigma lens, the zoom that I sold. So I plan to see how this works in my day-to-day work, seeing how it works out a little bit more professionally, and just seeing how it works. I believe Sigma isn't quite at the G Master range. I think the G Master is a little bit more precise when tracking. From what I've seen, Sigma, at least these prime lenses, again, these are prime lenses. This is literally 1.2. So that's kind of how this lens has to work, is locking on and kind of doing a little micro adjustment, and then you're there. So for prime lenses 1.2, you really can't do too much outside of that. This video is going to be exported in pretty much the highest quality. So what you're seeing right now is what you get. So I always do, you know, I'm not going to use some compression format, because then people are going to get, you know, misjudged. So this is pretty much the highest. I think it's the XAVC SI, which is it's in DCI 4K. So pretty much the highest 4K resolution you can get, aside from just going up in frames per second. But overall, I love the lens. I think I made a good choice on this lens. And it has a slower manual focus turn, which kind of relates to a cinema lens. This is probably actually a little slower than a cinema lens, because you really have to go like that for, you know, to crank a good amount of focus. But I do love autofocus, which is why I bought this lens, and I didn't save the money and go straight for the Zeiss primes. So that's pretty much what I'm working with. I hope I gave you a few good tests on what this lens looks like. I am trying to do some spec projects with some of my friends to do some nice little films. So I might do like the whole film just on this lens, which would be great. So let me know if you guys want to see some films on this channel, and I'll also can link my main channel where I post, you know, full completed work. It's called Fish Visions Media. Fish Visions is one word, and then media. That's kind of what I got for now, guys. I know it's not scientific. I'm sorry I didn't have a ton of time to give you a good result, but I did want to make this video go out on Monday, which is why I'm posting it then. So I love you all, and let me know what you guys think of this lens.